All right, I know this is not how everyone expected this election to turn out, but pay attention, please. We know just by the numbers there are going to be things that show up on this. We know there's going to be red flags, there's going to be evidence of shenanigans coast to coast. We know that because millions and millions of votes were purged before this election. They were calling states when there was only 100,000 votes separating the candidates, and they were at 80% counted. There's too many things. But let's put all that aside. Today we had Vice President Kamala Harris come out and concede-ish. And she spoke about where she wants this country to go and all this other stuff and the fair fight and all that. She conceded, and she called Donald Trump this morning, the morning after the election, and talked about assuring a peaceful transfer of power. Now, there were little tiny nuggets of her speech that were very, very interesting, as she was saying, and I recommend everybody watch the whole thing. I'll add it to the end here if you like. But think about it this way. The day after an election that looks like everything about it was shady as hell, and there's evidence all over the place of election fraud, okay? So a kick-ass prosecutor that has fought her entire life, the biggest corporations, the biggest scumbags, the biggest monstrous conglomerations of evil people and companies combined her entire life. She has been a fighter since day one. Whether you love her or hate her or whatever in between, she has been a badass prosecutor since day one. Now, are you telling me the day after an election that was obviously bullshit in 50 million different ways, the day after that, she's going to come in and throw in the towel and say, I give up. All right. Congratulations, Donald Jackass Trump. You win. I'm conceding. Oh, don't hurt me, Uncle. Whatever. Do you think that prosecutor that has fought so hard her entire life is going to, the first freaking morning when the states aren't even finished counting yet, not ask for a recount, not make any steps whatsoever, legal steps to prevent him from going forward? She didn't do any of that. And this prosecutor knows she had the legal right to throw 10, 20 different defenses out, attacks out. I mean, automatic. Could have filed a lot of cases. Didn't the next morning. Now, you don't think that the Biden administration, this same administration who was putting up a border bill and wanted to basically expose the Republicans and Donald Trump for what they truly are, and they were trying to point things out, and people would say, no, that's bullshit, didn't happen. So they did the border bill, and Langford wrote it up, most conservative Republican in the House and Senate. He wrote it up, bipartisan bill. I think Lindsey Graham babysat it. All right, that was done. They took everything the Republicans wanted at first and added to it. No reason under God's green earth that it should have been turned down. And on purpose, the Biden administration made a big deal about what they were presenting to Congress. And now it's up to Congress to vote on this. This is what we're doing. This is what everyone's pissed about, trying to solve this, and laid it out. So when they voted against it, which he knew they were going to do, when they voted against it, it would not only implicate and show beyond the shadow of a doubt Donald Trump is doing this on purpose to not only hurt the country, but to hurt Joe Biden. The same thing with the freaking gas prices. He set up that OPEC thing and all that. This is something that he has always done. So you've got Kamala Harris, you've got Joe Biden, and you've got Joe Biden. So after all of that, you got Kamala Harris, the ass-kicking prosecutor, taking a knee the very next day of a completely bullshit-riddled election from start to finish, cold sea to shining freaking sea. You don't think our intelligence organizations and all the people that worked on the Russia, all this knowledge that they gathered, and for the last 7 years of tracking all these individuals, you don't think they don't see things coming? You've got Elon Musk at the table now. Elon Musk was part of that whole group of people that went into the White House with Donald Trump, the consultants, the leaders of industry. And if you remember when Musk left that, he basically said, that's a freaking shit show. This guy shouldn't be running anything. That was Elon Musk back then. Now he's got government contracts. He's able to play games with his internet and all that stuff and charge money for hurricane rather than all of those games. But anyway, we've got Joe Biden that had the opportunity to expose the Republicans for all their bullshit, all right, with the border bill. He laid it out. He spelled everything out and said, this is what we're bringing to them right now. All they have to do is vote for it, and I will close the border that morning. All they have to do is vote for it. He made a big deal out of that, and that was pure brilliance. Now, why that matters now is simple. Joe Biden hasn't called Trump. Joe Biden hasn't made those steps. Joe Biden is immune from prosecution for anything having to do with presidential powers and presidential job. The presidential job that Donald Trump himself and his legal schmoes argued was to be a president, you shouldn't have anything held against you because sometimes you got to do what you got to do and it may not be legal. That was essentially it. They could hire SEAL Team 6. Remember all that? Okay, so Joe Biden, who has that immunity right now, has the DOJ, has all of that, has Jack Smith, has all these power hitters for investigations, and you've got an obviously corrupt election. Do you think Kamala Harris is going to walk away that very next day and Joe Biden isn't going to do something to remedy the situation, at least launch investigations into different things that they discovered during this process? You think they're actually both going to just concede and bow their heads after Joe Biden walked away from running for the second term, after he gave away his dream to do the most patriotic thing in American history to Kamala Harris to launch a 108-day campaign, and Donald Trump has had 7 years. 7 years of Russia help, China help, all these other help. 7 years, and it is obvious that he was supposed to be losing this election. So what we have here is a badass prosecutor who conceded the next day, but she didn't fully concede. And he wasn't at 270 at the time. And we have Joe Biden that has the powers of immunity and can do a lot of stuff in the next 2.5 months. Now, you're telling me they're just going to bow their heads and walk away and know there's not going to be any surprises? There's not going to be something that happens within the next month and a half that postpones or changes the outcome? Really? They're both just going to bow down and hand it to Trump. Stop worrying, ladies and gentlemen. Stop stressing out, stop freaking out, because the bottom line is there's no way on God's green earth that this is over and Kamala Harris just walked away. Walked away from a fight she's never walked away from in her entire life if she didn't know for a fact there was these big ass guns right behind her. This big movement right behind her ready to put stuff straight. That's what's going to come happening. That's what's coming next. And she knows it. So she pseudo-conceded. Don't stress out, ladies and gentlemen. Women's rights will be protected. Our democracy will be protected. And we have Dark Brandon with presidential immunity for the next 2.5 months. Stay diligent, stay educated, and be kind. We are all in this together. God bless.